Hey guys, this is Joe Harper with Reformed Truther Ministries. The purpose for this video today is to talk about my brand new book called The Hidden Enemies, The Antichrist, the New World Order, and the True History of the World. This has just come out a few days ago, and I'm very excited to talk about it. It's been some time since I've made a video. I have been working on this book since last summer of 2021, so over a year working on this book and working to get it out. And I just want to take a few minutes to talk about what's in the book and what it is and what it's about. So this book here, as you can tell, is a pretty thick book. It's over 600 pages long, but with good readable font. And so this book is a history of the entire world from Genesis chapter 1 up to the present day, written from a biblical foundation, trying to exercise discernment about the true nature of our world. So this book covers a lot of different topics, and it talks about the work of the secret societies centered around the system of Antichrist prophesied in the Bible and how they have worked to deceive the masses of the earth. This book talks about the biblical flat earth position. It talks about the true biblical cosmology, and it makes a theological and biblical case for that, as well as an empirical case for that. So that's a big part of the book on cosmology, but it is not exclusively a flat earth book, but it is definitely that's a big component of the book. And another portion of the book that is talked about is the work of the Nephilim and the pre-flood world and how that has affected all of history after the flood of Noah, even up to our own day. That's a huge component of the book. But it also talks about the Protestant Reformation, the rise of the Antichrist system. I take the view of the papal Antichrist system centered in the Pope of Rome, the classic historicist Protestant position that's talked about in the book. The Counter Reformation, the work of the Jesuits, who still play a huge part in the affairs of the world even up to our own day. The other secret societies, such as Freemasonry and the Illuminati's talked about in this book. So if you read this book, you're going to read a lot of history about many of the great events of history, such as the American Revolution, the French Revolution. You're going to read about the World Wars, the Cold War, the advance of communism. So there's a lot of political history in this book. There's a lot of economic history in this book. There's a lot of talk about central banking and how that's used to exploit people. But you're going to also find that there is a lot of church history in this book. There's a lot of talk about the Protestant reformers. There's a lot of talk about the Puritans in this book and the Great Awakening and other servants of the Lord, such as Charles Spurgeon or J.C. Philpott. There's talk about the Bible translations issue in this book. When you get into the 19th century, the rise of naturalistic textual criticism, which has led to the modern Bible translation. So this book is just packed full of information. This book is really trying to paint the big picture of our world and try to put it all together. So there's many topics in this book where there have been entire other books written about all of these subjects exclusively. You can go get books on the Protestant Reformation or books on the Nephilim or on biblical cosmology or on secret societies, but have a book where it's all put together, painting the picture in one load. That is the goal of this book, really trying to give us the true history of the world. So I would just hope that if that's something that interests you, you would look into this book. This is a book that is really, this book is dedicated to those who have stood for truth and have made sacrifices for truth. This is who this book is for. This is a book for people who love the truth. So if you are someone who cares about the truth, as a Christian who cares about what the Bible says, you care about the true history of the world, the true nature of the world, want to know what's going on, then this book is going to be for you. And one other thing I want to say about this book, there's a lot of exposure of evil in this book. The great theme of this book is spiritual warfare. I talk a lot about Ephesians chapter 6 in this book, about the spiritual wickedness in high places. That is the great theme of this book because spiritual warfare is one of the great themes of human history, that there has been a conflict between Jesus Christ and Satan going all throughout human history, right up going back to the creation of our world. So this book is really a book that covers a lot about spiritual warfare, but this book isn't just about exposing evil, it is also about laying out biblical truth. This book is primarily a historical book, but it is also a theological work in many respects. The biblical position on cosmology is laid out in a biblical slash theological perspective. Even though I do talk about the empirical case for biblical cosmology in this book, it really is a heavy emphasis on the biblical theological case, and that is something that has been covered by other writers, but is something that I believe needs to be covered more heavily. And that is something that has really come through in this book. And also, the biblical case for the Nephilim is laid out in this book, and even the biblical case for the conspiracy to cover up many of the truths of the world. That the Bible does make a biblical theological case for a conspiracy controlled by Satan, and that's something that a lot of Christians have not thought about. So, this book has a lot of theology in it, and the sections on church history really point back to a lot of theology in those sections of the book as well. So this book isn't just about exposing evil, it's also about laying out positive truth. So if that is something that is hopefully going to be something that's going to be an encouragement to people, even in the midst of granting them greater discernment over the deceptions that have been pulled over our eyes. So this is a book that's really, I hope the Lord is going to use to open the eyes of Christians above all else, and to open the eyes of those seeking the truth, and that this is going to be a book that's going to be a help to those who are trying to share the truth with others. So the last thing I'm going to talk about here is where you can find it. This book is posted on the Amazon store. If you put in The Hidden Enemies by Joe Harper, it does come up on the Amazon store. There is also a post. There is there is a link to this on my website at www.reformedtruther.com. If you go on there and you go to the section Books Created by Our Ministry, there is a link for the book The Hidden Enemies that'll take you to the Amazon store as well. So once again, this is the book The Hidden Enemies, the Antichrist, the New World Order, and the True History of the World by Joe Harper, and this is available on the Amazon store, and it is linked at www.reformedtruther.com. Thanks, guys. Hopefully more videos will be coming at some point in the future, probably getting back to some teaching videos at some point soon. Please be praying for me, and God bless, guys. Have a great day.